Hi guys, welcome back to Young and Confused. It's a series launched by myself, Jeffrey, and you also have Vishnu. So the topic today that we're going to be talking about is how we learn things and how we leverage that in order to change our careers. So I guess it's a pretty interesting topic in the sense that a lot of people think that wow, if you were to change your career, there's so many things that you're going to learn, and it's really quite daunting. And Vishnu and I have both gone through that road,
Yeah,
but I think we came out on top, and every day is still a learning process.
definitely. I agree, Jeff.
Yeah.
I think you had really good. What was it again? A poem, like a
Oh yes. Yeah. I wrote a poem, especially for this episode. The
yeah,
poem that I wrote, I think they call it a crossword poem, and it's called
acrostic,
Frauds.
acrostic
Oh,
poem.
acrostic poem. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot all the stuff that I learned in year three,
Yep.
unfortunately. And I only learned the dinosaurs, but that's about it. Yeah.
Fake news,
So
man.
fake news. Yeah, there weren't any dinosaurs. No such. So the poem goes like this, right? So F stands for formal education. So obviously, going through university or going through TAFE, and then picking up on that sort of stuff. The second one is called on-the-job learning. So, I don't need to explain that one. The third one is random learning. So whatever concepts interest you, you go in and you research it and you find out a little bit
Yeah,
about it. And then the fourth one is called certifications. So especially in the IT industry, there's a plethora of certifications that you can do. So it's just about finding the right one for you and then going on and doing it. And then the last one is experimentation. So the good thing these days is that we have, these cloud environments that we can spin up ourselves, and we can give them a lot of resources and build a lot of cool labs. And
yeah,
this is especially useful when you sort of want to just find out how something works, reverse engineer it, putting everything together. Because like Vishnu, you would agree that when you build something, you will always remember how it's built.
yeah, definitely. I mean, building, like for me personally, building something is the only way I learn. Formal
Yeah,
education, I can just, I can read a book, memorize it for like a day, go write the exam, easy. But I won't remember it like 2 days after.
yeah, it's
Uh,
it's pretty unfortunate, man. Like I think human beings learn best through experience. We
yeah.
learn best through pain, right? If there's no pain, you don't learn. If you
Yeah,
don't screw up like 100 times when you're trying to build something, you're not going to remember how to build it. Seriously.
yeah,
Like if you have a dream run, that's the worst thing that could happen to you when you're learning. Because
yeah,
in a
yeah,
few months' time, you're just going to completely forget how you put all that stuff together.
exactly. I mean, every time you make a mistake, that's another thing you learn. That's another thing you know not to do. And that's that.
Exactly.
I think that's the most important thing that comes. That's a lesson that I've learned about learning. If you don't make
Yeah.
mistakes, you don't learn anything. If you make mistakes, you're a genius at that point.
Yeah. And, at the same time, I don't want to be cliche because you see all those motivational videos going, oh, you can't let failure stop you. But at the same time, I do agree. It's a very demoralizing feeling when something just errors out constantly and, you're just like, trawling through logs trying to find out what went wrong.
Mm.
And it's a very annoying feeling. And, you have people probably, asking you, have you done it yet? Have you done it yet? But you still haven't because you're still making mistakes every few minutes.
Yep.
But at the same time, over time I think that you start making less and less mistakes because you grow an intuition for what is right and
Mm.
what is
Yep.
wrong. But without the initial avalanche of mistakes that you make, there is no quick way
Mm.
to success. There really isn't.
That's very true. So I want to draw an anecdote that I had. So when I first joined the workforce, it was at a television company, and nothing in that industry is online. One of the good things about working in the IT industry is that you can find anything online, right? You can find
Yeah.
anything on Google.
Thank God for Google, man.
Yeah, thank God.
I don't know how people had careers before Google, man.
Oh man,
Seriously.
I know. Like working in the broadcast industry, because everything is restricted and everything is all what's it called? Nothing's open source. Nothing's
Yeah.
because everything costs like $100,000 for a product. It's all restricted and it's all internal knowledge. And yeah, it was incredibly hard to learn anything. You had to be
Mm,
shown how to do it, then you had to go read manuals written by people who probably should not have been writing manuals.
yep.
And then you look at today, right? And the advantage of what we have in the IT industry is that we're not just learning from our mistakes, we're learning from other people's mistakes by going on Stack Overflow, going on GitHub, looking at other people's code, other people's how other people have done things, even just comments on like Reddit. We learn so much through other people's mistakes as well.
Yeah, that's right. There's really no excuse for saying that you don't know how to do something. You know, there's
Yeah.
even on YouTube alone, not even Google, right? There's so many tutorials to
Mm.
teach you things. And there's so many things that you want to learn about that there are comprehensive breakdowns on how to get something done. But I guess one caveat I would like to put in is the fact that sometimes it could be a bad thing as well, right? Because if everything is online, teaching you, you know, with a step-to-step guide on how to do something, it sort of leads you down the road of mental laziness because
Yep.
you stop thinking for yourself, right? You just
Mm.
go, you know, there's going to be a tutorial. I just follow these exact steps. And sometimes you don't even think about what you're doing.
Mm.
You're just following everything step by step. And that's a bad thing as well. It's a
Yeah.
bad thing for critical thinking. So, you know, even though there's information available, you still got to sometimes stop and think and use your own brain as part of your own learning.
Yep. And again, this is where I think experimentation comes in. You shouldn't be doing exactly what the tutorials say. You should be trying to do something. If you're starting out, you should be try to do something slightly different. And that's what I
Yeah.
always try to do when I try to learn new products or new
Yeah.
technology. I always try to do something I want to do, not what the tutorial says. So I refer to the tutorial to see how they've done it, take that and try to apply it to what I want to do. And that's how I learn, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, same here, same here. It's all part of the experimentation, right? Like
Yep.
you got to do this new thing. Tutorials are so boring to read, man. I never had a thing for reading books. I never liked books. Sometimes you have to read them, but if I had it my way, I would just get my hands on the thing that I have to
Mm.
do. You know, pull it apart, break it to pieces, put it
Yeah.
back together, and then you go back to the book. To your point, you read it and you go, "Oh fuck, everything makes sense. Why are you quoting the obvious?"
Yeah.
But if you did it the other way around, the sentiment that you would have would be the complete and utter opposite.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think for us, that's the way we approach things. But we both know people who do it the other way, right? Who look
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
book and
exactly.
follow it to the letter. And
Yeah, it like especially in IT where there's so much jargon. When you're reading the book, it's like freaking reading like another like
yeah,
language. It's like reading Sanskrit or something like that. Yeah.
yeah, oh, definitely, man. Like, I mean, we've seen and documentation is actually pretty poor in the IT industry. Like when you
Yep.
see the documentation, you go, "Oh my god, this is the best product ever." But the majority of the time, the products we've worked on, oh my god, the documentation is horrific.
Yeah, that's right. But like in terms of searching for the right documentation when you're just learning, I would
Mm,
say that for me, the best documentation are the ones that give you examples.
yep,
You know, if you just have documentation that throws at you jargon after jargon, and have these vague explanations where you're not 100% certain you understand what they mean, if they were to give you like an example, that's where the gold is, right? Because then you
yep,
can see in practice and it eliminates a lot of ambiguity.
yeah, no, definitely. And thank God for YouTube, right?
Thank God for YouTube, man. Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Let's also talk a little bit about formal education. Let's go
Okay.
through the five letters of force.
Yeah.
So yeah. So like for me, formal education, even though it costed me like an arm and a leg, because I
Mm,
went and did a master's of IT after previously having a bachelor's of commerce. It was like completely, left wing. But the thing is, I still value a formal education because
yeah.
it gives you like a more holistic sort of view of the industry and all the things that you sort of need to know. So
Yeah.
it's like a mile wide, but an inch deep. But it's a good starting place, and obviously you can get it for much cheaper by going to places like TAFE. But I enjoyed my university experience, and I think that for me it sort of set me up for my own career change because sometimes when you're trying to learn something new, you don't know where to start.
Yeah,
So if
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I completely agree. For me, uni, as you said, was the same thing. It provided us with a framework. And in my opinion, uni isn't so much about the topics or the subjects that we learn. It's about the development of critical thinking skills that we
Yeah.
need. And whether it was commerce or engineering in my case, the biggest thing that we got out of it were those skills. Those the ability to think independently, the ability to think critically, the ability to analyze whatever we need to analyze.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly right, man. Yeah,
so,
because sometimes, like most of the time at uni, you're not given the exact rubric on how to achieve something, and that's the
yep.
nature of assignments, right? When you get an assignment, there is no answer that's available for you to download off the web. You sort of have to just think through it sequentially, be
Mm,
critical in your thought, and then be able to answer the question. And the answer that you might come up with, or the code that you might write, may be completely different to someone else, but it may still achieve the same outcome. And I think that that's the thing that I really really value from university, is the
yeah.
sense that if you have a problem, you can always solve it with the right amount of research and then the right amount of thinking.
Yeah, and there is guidance for that. That's the other thing I
Yep.
think uni provides. It provides you with the training wheels to work out in industry. Most
Yep. Yep.
people, I wouldn't say most people, some people don't need it, some people do need it. And for me, I found uni to be a really helpful experience.
Yeah.
And not
Exactly
just,
right.
yeah, and
Yeah.
not just,
Like I was gonna say. Yeah. You go. Sorry, man.
okay, sorry, man. Well, I was going to complete it by saying it also introduces you to different ways of thinking. So when you do computer science at uni, they teach you algorithms which you wouldn't learn on your own, just because you'd only be doing things you're interested in. But this forces
Yeah.
you to learn algorithms that may not be directly applicable. But
Yeah. Yeah, you're so right. It's sort of like when you're in high school and you're learning things like differentiation and
yeah,
integration in mathematics. You're like, fuck, man, like when am I ever going to use this? But when you go to university, you find that, oh, if I calculate the tangent of a curve,
mm,
then I can actually predict so and so. So even though you learn things that you may think are irrelevant, somewhere down the line, you realize that, oh crap, I actually need this skill, or I actually need to understand the concepts behind this
mm,
in order to know what I'm doing. So yeah, it forces you to do the things that you find boring,
yeah,
but boring things are not, necessarily bad things.
definitely, definitely.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yes.
The next thing that I want to talk about is also, on the job training, right? So
Mm,
um, obviously there is no substitute for, experience.
yep.
When you go into a client environment or you work in a client environment, understanding how they do things, understanding, for example, we do cybersecurity, understanding how they set up their own cybersecurity infrastructure is really, really important, because chances are the next organization that you go to is also going to have a similar sort of setup.
Yep.
So on the job learning is, by far, one of the most important ones, I would say.
Definitely. Like, I mean, nothing we've learned at uni was applicable to work, right?
Well, it
Everything.
was like, I mean, we learned networking at uni, right? And it was applicable in the sense that, you got to understand the OSI, 7 layers, how they interact with each other. But obviously it's at a very high level,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would say.
I
Yeah.
agree. Like, I was thinking more in terms of like, in uni, you learn the concepts. At work, you learn how to use products, especially where we worked. We were learning how these products worked. And you don't get that training in uni. You don't get that training at TAFE. That's something you only get on the job. And it's also the way environments are set up, as you said, because
Yeah.
people who work at these organizations are unique in the way they think. And
Yeah.
that's true for everything. While there are similarities, the two places I worked at most of my time have completely different environments and completely different layouts, and the way you interact with them is completely different. And the only way you're going to learn that is by on-the-job training. You can't avoid
Yeah.
it, and it will happen naturally. Or I don't think you'll be in a job for that long.
Yeah, that's right. And there's certain things that, they teach you at uni about, consequence and ethics that
Mm.
you don't really start feeling until you're touching real life systems.
Yeah,
And oh man, if I do RMR star, I'm going to delete the whole box. and then I'm going to, collapse the whole organization. Like these things don't come to your mind until you've had actual real experience
Yep.
in a live environment. And also, for example, at uni, they talk about the very boring subject of backup and restore. But backup and restore is probably the saving grace of all organizations that have been hit by ransomwares,
Mm.
right? So it's a
Yep.
very important concept. It's very dry and banal, but it's not until you start working in an organization that you realize that it is a
Yep.
very, very important thing.
I completely agree. I mean, one of the projects that I've been working on, if we didn't back up and restore before trying to upgrade something, we would have been up shit creek without a paddle. But
Yeah, we would have deleted the whole security monitoring infrastructure of an organization, right? So,
yeah. Yeah. So backup and restore now becomes like our God, essentially. We believe in
exactly.
it completely.
Exactly. Even if it takes like 10 hours, we're still going to do it. No
Yeah.
matter what the client says, oh, you gotta kill it. Now stuff that, man. We're sitting there and we're going to wait until that backup and restore completes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that saved our asses so much.
Yep. Yep.
So what's
So,
next?
yeah.
R.
So the next one is R. So random learnings. So I guess Vishnu, you're the king of random learnings, man. I get that habit from you these days.
It's just, just being interested in different things outside of work.
Yeah.
Like,
Tell us about the Ducky DNS that you set up, the VPN into your home.
I wanted a VPN into my home because, it sounded cool at the time just to play around with it. So I was like, how do I get a VPN set up? Firstly, one of the big issues is I'm too cheap to pay for static IP. I know it's $10 a month, but I was thinking, how could I get around it? And so I found what's it called? DuckDNS. What it does is it essentially your server continuously polls the your server continuously polls the DuckDNS server, and it updates your IP address. So if you have a static IP address, if you have a dynamic IP address, it will keep updating that IP address on that server. And
Mm.
what that server does is it links a URL or a web address to that IP address, and it will keep changing it as required. And that way, you can avoid having a static IP tied to a domain name. And that's what I did. So I set that up, and now I had a continuous access point into my server. And after that, I wanted to use my Raspberry Pi, which was sitting at home doing nothing. So I have a bad habit, as you know, Jeff, of buying computers, Raspberry Pi. I've got like 4 or 5 at home. And I've got, you've seen my monitor setup. It's like 3 monitors in a row. It looks pretty
Yep.
awesome. But
Yep.
yeah, so I have a really bad habit. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to use one of these Raspberry Pis to set up a VPN for fun. And that's what random learning, I think, is for me. It's
Yeah,
about
and
just,
you learn so much about it as well, right? You
yeah,
learn about so many things about, oh yeah, you need a static IP address for, a VPN session into your
yeah,
home, right? Like these are the sort of things that you'll remember forever
yeah,
because you
exactly.
messed around with it, right? So
Yeah,
just
and it ties into,
random.
experimentation a little bit, but yeah, random learning. So what I'm doing now is I'm setting up a reverse proxy because I want to run multiple services off that single IP address, and I can only have
Yep,
one port 80 on my network. So
yep.
split it.
Ah, reverse proxies, man. Yeah, see, like I learned about reverse proxies through a product called HA proxy, because
Mm,
at the time I didn't really get the difference between a proxy and a load balancer, in the sense that when you set up a reverse proxy, you can send packets down to multiple different web servers based on
mm,
your own choosing, right?
yeah,
But that's also what a load balancer does. So I set up my environment with a load balancer and a reverse proxy, and then I try to discern what the difference was. And I found that with a reverse proxy, the reverse proxy terminates the session and starts a new session with the web server that's behind it, whereas
yeah.
a load balancer doesn't do something like that. And I would have never remembered that fact had I not set up my own
Mm.
labs and did my own random experimentation.
Yep. And I think the other thing about random learnings is things you just learn just by absorption, by being around people.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly.
like a couple of our colleagues are so intelligent about the products we were working on at the time. And yeah, we picked up so much just by talking to them, just by sitting around listening to their war stories.
Yeah, that's right, man. Just learning through osmosis. You
Yeah.
just got to be in the right environment. It's like learning a language, man. If I
Mm,
try to learn, German, I'm not going to have much luck being here in Australia, talking to people in English and then trying to learn a bit of German every single night. It's an
yeah.
immersive experience, right? So you got to be at a location where everyone's talking about the same thing. And then over time, unconsciously, you start learning it as well. It's just the way learning works.
Yeah, definitely. I think random learning is essentially osmosis. I think you need to change
Yeah.
that to
Yeah, I
tell
know.
people.
Yeah, it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, work in progress. Yep. It will
Yeah.
work out. Don't worry, man. Let's jump
So
on to C. I
what do we
think
have
this is the
next?
one. C.
Oh, certifications. Yeah,
This
the
is the one we
certifications.
disagree on, I think.
Yeah, well, the reason why I like certifications is because so you've got two types of certifications. You've got vendor certifications, and then you've
Mm,
got product agnostic certifications.
yeah.
And I think with certifications, I see it as a graduation step after university in the sense that certifications are more tailored towards being practical to an organization. That's my belief.
Yep.
After doing multiple vendor certifications, such as ones from AWS, Azure, Symantec, I found that I did learn a lot about the actual products that companies are putting into production, and
Yep.
therefore that equipped me to become a better cybersecurity professional when I consulted for those companies.
Yep.
But at the same time, the vendor products, things change a lot as well, right?
Mm,
So just because you have the certification now, in a few months or a few years' time, that certification is going to be irrelevant. So it doesn't really teach you how to think. A lot of it is just rote memorization,
yep.
and it could be becoming, very irrelevant, in the next
Mm.
couple of years.
So I agree in the sense that it improves your job opportunities and so on, because a lot of recruiters look for certifications, and it's a good thing to chase if that's your thing. But for me, I hate certifications. I feel like I learn much better about the product when I experiment with it, and I don't need to prove that I know a product, because I find that I know what lambdas do and I know what functions do, but I don't really know what the differences between those two would be, and that's what a certification will test you on.
Yeah,
I feel like it's enough to know what they do, and when I use that product, I will dig into that detail.
yeah.
Certifications don't capture that kind of ability, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
But
agree. I guess, like, from my point of view, the reason why I do a certification is sort of similar as to why I would do university, in the sense that it gives you a holistic breakdown of
mm,
a certain product. And
yep,
a lot of times, my biggest fear is that, oh shit, am I missing something? Whereas if I do a certification, I feel a bit of moral comfort. Like, I feel a bit of comfort in the sense that I think I know 80% of what this product does, and the other 20% I got to go and just like mess around with it and break it apart and
yep,
learn on the product itself.
mm,
But I agree, it's definitely not the be all and end all.
yeah, no, I agree. But I also feel, to an extent, and this will probably get me banned from every vendor organization ever when I say this. I feel like vendors are in it to make money out of certifications. Honestly, like
They are. They
the,
are.
the prices on it are ridiculous, and
Yep.
some of the
Like if you
questions,
do if you do
yeah,
like a SANS, that's like 12 grand or something like that. It's crazy.
and
You would
yeah,
never be able to do that unless the organization paid for it.
I did a certification at the start of this year. I don't want to say the name, but it was a waste of my time. Honestly, like it was just rote learning. Like product details, like ooh, how how many report types does this support? CSV, PDF, all of the above kind of shit. Like
Yep.
it doesn't matter really, right? It doesn't tell you anything about what I know about the product. And
Yep.
I think that certification was like 300, $400, and you needed it to for the organization to become a partner or something.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yeah, those certifications are the worst. Yeah, some of
yeah,
the ones that I did were literally very similar to what you said. In fact, one of the questions was, how many languages does this product support? And I'm like, are you serious? Like, do I really, is a client ever going to ask me that question?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, some of them are pretty ridiculous, but there are ones where it's more practical in nature.
mm,
So some of the pen testing ones, such as, OSCP, from
yeah,
what I hear, I haven't done it myself, but I know that it's a very practical one. The exam is a 24-hour
yeah,
exam where you just basically have to own a device.
yeah. So some of those are really good as well. Like, I'm not saying they're not. It's just that I feel there's way too many certifications on the market, and the fact that recruiters are looking for these is without looking at the skills of an individual. I mean, obviously they don't have time, and I can completely understand that. And this is like
Yeah.
a signal, right? A uni degree
Yeah,
is
it's a
just,
signal.
yeah,
Yeah,
uni
I was
degree is
just
a
going to
signal.
say, even uni degree is a signal. So you got to choose things
Yeah.
strategically, right? Like, obviously, you got to learn, but at the same time, why not kill two birds with one
Mm.
stone, right? Why not also create a positive signal to the market that you know your stuff?
Yeah, no, that's very true. And I understand that. But again, for me personally, certifications, I will do them, obviously, because you need it in the industry. But I don't think it reflects really knowledge. And I think that's a fair argument to make.
Yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
think it's a fair argument. Definitely right. And also, if you don't practice on a certain tool, like say
Mm.
you did a vendor certification, after a few like months, you'll start forgetting a lot of the intricacies.
Yeah.
And the thing about working in the IT industry is that the intricacies matter.
Yeah.
The depth is always in the detail, and as soon as you start forgetting the detail, that's when you're gonna, start generalizing things. And when you start generalizing things, that can get you into a lot of hot water.
Yeah. No, that's very true. Like a client will ask you a question and you think it's a reasonable question to say yes to, but if you don't know a particular detail about a product, like an example was for me, a client asked me if we could do something like make a report with the rows as columns and the columns as rows.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a pretty reasonable request. And I was about to say yes, but then I thought about it and I was like, I know this product. It had the dumbest issues with it at times. And I was
Mm,
like, oh, let me check. I believe it should, and I said, let me check, but I believe it should be able to do this. So I went
mm,
back, looked at it. I was like, wait, there's no documentation on how to do this. Then I went and asked some colleagues, and they're like, oh no, you can't do that. Just get them to download an Excel file
yeah.
and do it using
Yeah.
Excel. I was like,
Yeah.
but
It's
then I
it's
went,
crazy.
but then I went back to the client and I said, sorry, we can't do it through the product, but you can do it through Excel. I know it's not an ideal solution, but that's a limitation of the product, unfortunately. And that
Yeah.
was acceptable at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's right. And no matter how many certifications you do, it's not gonna get you that sort of knowledge. So yeah, let's talk about the last one, experimentation. So I sort of put in experimentation because I wanted to finish the acrostic poem. But like to your point previously, experimentation is obviously very similar to random learning.
Mm,
But again, if you ever, get told to do something, or, if you're ever curious about, the way a certain thing works, then experimentation is your best friend. And, like I said before, we all have access to a lot of cheap resources,
yep.
especially in the cloud. Get yourself a, AWS account, or, DigitalOcean account, spin up a few servers, install some applications, and then just muck around with it. Create your own
Oh, yeah.
local area network, and then just test how things work.
Yep.
So an example of the thing that I did just recently was, I just wanted to reacquaint myself with Metasploit,
Oh, yeah.
which is a tool that's used by a lot of pen testers, to basically easily exploit vulnerabilities in systems.
Mm,
So I downloaded Metasploit, I played around with it, I understood how it works. I understood, all the different phases of pen testing by testing out different capabilities of Metasploit. And
yep.
now I'm never really going to forget the process of actually owning a device, escalating privileges, setting up persistence on the machine, launching reverse shells. Those are the things that I'm never going to forget. And it was all due to experimentation.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like if you just think about how many people in our organization have their own home lab setups that are probably more secure and more well thought out and well built than our own office Wi-Fi network.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah. So, how can you be sure on what is a good setup without having a good setup yourself?
Yeah. And that's pretty crazy. Everyone does it. Like, I think, especially in the security industry,
Yep.
you need to be working on a 24/7 almost. Like one of
Yeah.
our direct manager, one thing he told me is that in his spare time, which he rarely gets these days, he reads up on new technologies, how they're implemented, and tries to play around with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, you're 40 or over 40, have like 2 kids, and you still use your spare time not to watch videos or anything like that like we do, but
Yeah.
actually sit down and research on new technologies, which is,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
yeah,
it's just the prerequisite for being in the IT industry. You just got to experiment,
yeah,
figure out why you're getting errors, and then finally mastering the thing that you're trying to do.
mm, yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely. Like it is,
Cool.
yeah.
That's all I have to say, man. Yeah. What about you, Vishnu?
No, I think we've covered it. I love your acrostic poem.
Yeah.
Force.
I hope it helps others, man. That's what we're here for, to
Yeah,
tell it how it is, right? And it's not all
without all the bullshit, That's
yeah, without all the bullshit. Everyone always claims to have all the answers, but all we can tell you guys is based on our own experience. This is what helps, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't.
yeah. You have to learn on your own at the end of the day.
Yeah,
I mean,
and you might come up with a even sexier acrostic poem than my one. If you do, please share.
yes, definitely in the comments below.
Yeah.
All
All right, man. That's
right,
it from me.
let's cut there.
Cut.